they grow in places outdoors where the conditions are ideal for them. Now, a lot of herbs are strong. They're very strong. They will grow in the middle of driveways, and they'll grow in between sidewalks, and they'll grow, I mean, just virtually anywhere you have broken ground or, you know, fires in the woods or anything like that, the herbs will first grow. But the problem with that is, you think if an herb is that strong, it should stand inside. I think it needs to be out in the elements. I do. And I think that's how you're going to get your best properties out of it and get your best use out of it. What I will cover today will be drying, infusing it in oil, how to keep it in, how to keep everything maybe in jars so that you can use them throughout the year. And over thousands of years, that's how they dealt with herbs. So they grow outdoors, you preserve them. The tinctures are stored and preserved in alcohol. Then you have the oil infusions, which are completely steeped in oil, obviously, and then left to sit so that you get the medicinal property out of it. Wine, there's many different variations. So I'm just going to cover a couple here. And usually what I do, I will try to use fresh herbs all summer. And then at the end of that season, when I know it's almost done, I hack everything off as low as possible for it to come back the next year and bring it in the house and dry it or preserve it. So, how are ya?
Good.
Very good.
Well, they're talking about lavender.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking about lavender. I'll be touching on some things about that. That's a lot of fun, lavender. There's so many things you can do with lavender. Shall I wait a few more minutes, or is everybody, are we at 10 o'clock? Okay. Questions are always welcome, please. I love the exchange. It's much more like a conversation. My name is Maria Mastriana. I live locally here. I'm also the creator of these mixes. You can find for sale, actually. I think everything is 10% off. All of the herbs today, as well as Mia's mixes inside. So you
Where does Mia come from, Maria? Is that
yeah, it was my childhood nickname, actually. It's just where Rita came from. Yeah. My great-grandmother was an herbalist, and she also did midwifery. And back in those days, they didn't have classes or certificates or diplomas. You basically learned as you went along. I was a bit too young to be trained, obviously, by her, which you can ask, but I was very interested in it throughout my family, and I have been at it for 16 years now. Some self-taught, I should say a lot self-taught, and then some sitting with actual teachers. I don't carry certificates. I prefer to do things the old-fashioned way and just learn as I went along, trial and error, experimentation. And that's basically how I've gotten to where I am today. So this is like super exciting to like actually get to talk to people about what I like the most. You know, there's so much to herbal medicine. It is endless. You're never going to reach the end where you know everything. Every culture has its own folklore, history, superstition. So there's such a broad spectrum to gain from it, which is a lot of fun. And then basically, it leads me to I am not an expert. This is for entertainment purposes only, as the state of New York means. We will also say, I tell people all the time in my caution portion of this class, to always consult a doctor, use your common sense, never mess with herbs that you do not know about or have not studied. Allergy-wise, it is always important to pay attention. And I tell people there's a simple test you can give yourself to see if you have allergies to something, rather than diving in and putting it on your mouth or drinking it and then having a reaction. What you can do is actually what I call a patch test. So you will take the herbal remedy that you're about to embark on, and you'll rub it on the inner part of the wrist. It is a pulse point, and it is also a point where the skin is very sensitive. You wait 24 hours. After the 24 hours, if you do not have any redness, irritation, then you can proceed. You'll have a better idea of what you're dealing with. Another way is behind the ear here, which is what you would find maybe your hairdressers are supposed to do when they apply hair color, if you are to do something like that. In my early days, I went and received my cosmetology license for the main fact that it enables me to touch people legally in New York State, to mix chemicals and different natural products, and to create my own products. It also enables me to do massage and to go ahead and speak about that freely. So that was where my first license came from, to start on this, to be able to work with other people. You'd be surprised that cosmetologists can actually have that free range, but it's a fact, and it's a really fun fact. The other thing that I will touch on today, again, with pregnancy, anything along that lines, any health issues, any heart issues, never mix if you're on medication with an herb without consulting your doctor. If your doctor's not interested in hearing about herbal medicine, which can happen, you can always consult a homeopathic doctor, a holistic doctor. There's one right here in Gilbert. They actually marry the two medicines together, so they know and will work with you on your herbs and your medications to better help you. So, let's see. We're going to go on with what I'm covering today. I will be covering infusions, both oil and water infusions. And granted, I don't have a hot plate here, so I won't be actually boiling water or boiling oil for you today, but we're going to do some mocks so that you can see what we're doing. The other one will be a vinegar infusion, which is very simple. You've seen it in every Italian deli, and you can totally do it yourself, and it preserves herbs for the winter and the long haul. I'll be covering drying, potpourris, how to make potpourris and what to do with them and how to have fun with it. Herbal baths, compresses, poultices, steams, washes, and soaps. And then the other fun one that we all love is tinctures, which is an alcohol-based herbal medicine. Okay. Is there any questions before I continue on?
That sounds like hours.
There is a lot involved, and I'm going to touch on all of it as briefly as I can. The medicinal properties I did cover in the first class. I'll kind of touch on some of those. This is a hot spot. If you need to get up and cool off, that's a great spot. You can go walk in there and walk back in. I won't be offended at all. I may have to do that.
I may have to make a sunblock.
Yeah, exactly. There is, again, for people that just arrived, paper and pencils. I also have sit on the envelopes that are on the tables. If you want to, fill out your email address for future classes. I will be sending information if you're interested. There's also Mia's Mixes and my place of business. There's a flyer on your table, so that's where you can find me. I am right up the road.
Yay, I'm glad you came.
There's lots of books. Feel free to open them up, look through them, and write them down. If you want, you can find most of these on Amazon. Fairly inexpensive. They are fabulous textbooks. They are wonderful to go through to find simple recipes. I've used them when I've started out with making different things. They're great, all of them. The lavender book is beautiful, and so is the Gifts of Herbs. They have so many different craft ideas and things to do with your herbs. So, okay, I think what I'm going to do next is we're going to get into discussing what each one of these things that we'll be making is. I'm going to talk about tools. I like to use wood. I try not to use metal. Sometimes that's impossible. But when I'm working with, say, pounding an herb, or actually with the inside of the herb, the juices and things like that, I try not to use metal because it can react. Okay? So a wooden spoon is great. This is one of my other most fabulous things. This is a skewer stick you get at a grocery store that you would put your chicken skewers on. This is great because when you're working with a bunch of oil and a jar and sticky herbs, and it is messy sometimes, and you need to get air bubbles out, you can get in there, you can stir, and you're not dealing with spoon and slop and mess. It's a much easier system that I have found that works really well for me. A funnel, super important, helps with making messes. You might want to find different sizes. This one's super teeny tiny. I tend to use this one for oil. Why did I do anything else? Standard tea ball, when you're dealing with teas and infusing things with hot water. These are wonderful because you shove the herb in there, put it in the hot water, and let it steep. I'm sure you've all messed with this. This is another version of that, what I tend to do with this one, when you throw the fresh herb in the hot water, you set this on top of a cup and pour, so the herbs fall in here and be hot. Or a strain as well, same kind of idea. You can also use this with your oil infusions, which are very important. You'll set that on top because all that gunky is going to sit for a couple of weeks. It's going to be gunky. You're going to want to put it in here and press it to get all the oil out into your clean jar for storage. So this is another really good tool. A cutting board, key, and then of course a really good knife. They're always a really good idea to have. This one here, now this is just a standard yarn, but it is 100% cotton and it is non-bleached. I always tell people use edible things when you're dealing with your herbs that you'll be taking internally. So you're not going to want dyed string. Another one is butcher string. That's a great thing to use when you're tying up your herbs or when you're working with them, say with bundling cheesecloth or whatever. And that will take me to my next. This is the poor man's tea bag, I call it, but I love it. It's wonderful stuff. I use it all the time. Your standard cheesecloth. You can get it at any grocery store for about $3. I use these for everything, from poultices, compresses, as I said, to strain things out. If I want to make my own little tea bag of something I have concocted, it works wonders. And like I said, edible, again, you can use it with your food. It's very safe. Any questions so far? Yep. Okay. If I need me to stop, then let me know. This is the last and not least, and I don't know if anybody's really into creating something like this, but this is something I created for larger scale oil infusions. What happens in the jars, when you put the oil on top of the herb, it floats. The herbs will float. And it is important to not allow the plant matter to stick up above the oil because it will mold and therefore pollute what you're working with. And I've had jars this big full of beautiful olive oils and infused herbs mold and be ruined and have to be destroyed. You never touch an herb that has molds. You never intake anything that would have a mold on it because you just don't know what it's going to do. So this went down inside of the jar on top of the plant matter. It is made with birch and I believe maple, which is again food safe. So we would push this down inside the jar with the lid on top and it would just keep that plant matter down a little bit. As I said, if anybody has any, it has a little drill hole and a little stick in between two pieces of wood that fit the jar. Pretty standard. So I think that's it for tools. Of course, you need water. Always clean water, because you're going to always want to wash everything that you have. All of your herbs must be rinsed. And the key to that would be simply, while you're washing, yes, tap water. If you have good clean tap water, yes. Yes, it does. And that's entirely up to your choice, what you choose to do. If you want to purchase the non-chemically treated water, or you can use your tap water. I'm fortunate, I have a really nice well, but not everybody is as fortunate, and you work with what you have. So, and it is a choice, definitely. Yeah, you're already drinking the chlorine. You know what I mean? And we all know what chlorine can do to the body. We all know where we're at with that. In this day and age, we have to live with it. I'm not going to go ahead and insult town water, but one of the keys about herbs when you are harvesting them. Now these I did yesterday, so they're all a bit droopy. You're going to want to check the front and the back. You're not going to want a leaf that has brown or that is super brown or has been eaten to death by bugs. You're not going to want a leaf that might have a mold on it. And one of the keys that I tend to find, especially my lettuce, you'll turn it over and there'll be a little cluster of eggs. You don't want to eat them. You want to look out. They can be a little protein, I'm sure we've all eaten our share in our life. And I have done that. I've pulled it over and been like, oh look, it's a little tiny spider cluster, or, you know, something like that. So just be careful that you look at each leaf, and it is a lot of work, but you're actually seeing your medicine, you're seeing your food, you know what's in it, you know where it came from. Like I said, everything to be washed very well, and then of course you're going to do things like, you know, you're going to have your cutting boards, you're going to cut things. Some of your infusions you don't really need to cut, you can bruise. So I think I'm going to start with an infusion of oil today because it's pretty standard, and you can put most of the herbs in it for an infusion. So if we're going to do, say, rosemary, what you're going to want to do, and these are tiny little jars because it does take a lot of oil, and it can be expensive, but it is a wonderful way to preserve. So you're going to take some of your rosemary.
So infusion is just a way of preserving the herb.
It is, and the oil will actually extract the medicinal product from the herb, and it will keep for up to 2 years. I have kept them. They do say to be very careful after a year. You're going to want to smell it often every time you open it, and if it starts to smell a little decay, you're done with it. Put it away. That's why I say it's always good to make small batches.
You broke that microphone.
Exactly. This is from my garden this morning. I actually picked this today because I knew this stuff is super pungent. I figured it would be the best one to show people. What you're going to want to do now, I have potato mashers at home. I've actually collected because I'm a weirdo, but they work really good when you're bruising herbs. I didn't bring one today because I didn't want to intimidate people and have them be like, well, I don't know where to find one of those, you know. You can just use your wooden spoon. This is bruising. It's a very standard process. You're bruising the plant matter, and then you can strip the leaves. If you wish to put the stem in, you may. Sometimes that's better to chop. If you have a pretty long... Yep, pestle and mortar work beautiful if you have that. That's a great way of doing it. I like those too. If you have a pretty glass, they do, and it makes you feel like, you know, you're actually, you know, it's good. It makes you feel good inside. I know. You love it. The pretty jar, if you're looking for something to look really nice and you have a nice elongated jar to fill with oil, bruise it and put the entire sprig inside and let it sit. It will do the same purpose. It's just, it'll look really nice on your counter, on your stove, you know, type of a thing. This, I like to use grapeseed or olive oil. Olive oil can be very expensive. Grapeseed is a little less expensive. They say to infuse essential oils and herbs in a nut oil. However, we all know not everyone can deal with a nut oil. They can be very dangerous to people. So I tend to go more towards this. Avocado oil is wonderful, however, extremely expensive. So if you're going to be doing this in your standard everyday living, you might want to watch some of those economic things unless you have a really special herb or a really special thing that you're making. So what we do is we will just fill. Okay, you fill that up. You want to leave a little bit of space towards the top. So this whole top area here I've left open. What I like to do is as so, and you might actually, you're going to want to fill this a bit more. I'm using a very small amount. The air bubbles create decay. When you have air and you have a fresh herb, it can cause bacteria. You're leaving space for bacteria, which you don't want. What you would truly do is pack this jar tight with your rosemary. So I'm using a very small amount. We would really pack this jar and press it in and then cover with the oil. And then you're going to go around as so, and you're going to tamp, and you're going to pat it all down there. Now tomorrow, will your herbs be floating on the surface? Yes. You're going to do the same thing every day. You will pack.
Every day for how long?
About 3 weeks. You will label. You will date. And also a really good idea is to put on the weather when you harvested it. What did it look like outside? What was it doing when you got it? You're going to find next year, if you do it again, and and you harvest at a different time, you say, wow, that oil smelled a lot better last year than it did this year. Why? Well, I'm going to look at the weather. I'm going to look at what was going on at the time that I harvested. Super, super important. Okay? So there would be your oil infusion. After about 3 weeks, I've actually left oil infusions for up to 2 months. It's entirely up to you. 3 weeks is a good amount. You're going to open, and I'm not going to really do this because I don't have a standard cleanup for a messy oil infusion. You can do something like this with your cheesecloth. You take the lid off, obviously. Cheesecloth over the top and a rubber band. You will have your clean jar. You have a natural strainer now. And you'll tip and pour. Pack, label, and put in a dark place out of the sun. You want to avoid sunlight when you're dealing with oils, always, and herbs. The sun tends to take away medicinal properties. So that's an easy way of straining out your herb. Do you have a question?
When you were using that long stick, you were trying to get the air bubbles then? Is that what you were doing? Okay, and then after 3 weeks, you remove the oil? Or
you remove the plant matter.
Oh, the plant matter.
Yep, and put
Just
the
that
oil into a clean, fresh container. And as I said, you're going to want to check this often. You're going to want to look at it. You're going to want to make sure that your plant matter is submerged. You might want to actually even add a little more oil as you go. If you see that some of the oil is soaking into the herbs and things get a little thicker and a little heavier. So there's a lot of common sense involved, you know, in working here. You're looking.
This is to use the oil. You don't
I'm sorry?
the end. You use the oil.
Yeah, you use the oil. Nope, the herb goes into the compost pile or trash can or whatever it
I
is.
thought the oil preserved
You're preserving the medicine inside. What you will do with this oil is you will rub it on your sore joints. You can put it on your salads. You can use it for many culinary things that you would use rosemary for. Cooking eggs in a rosemary infused oil is fantastic. This is what an infusion is. Infusions are a way of preserving your herbal medicine. A standard way of preserving an herb in the winter that is harvested is drying. And this would be where you would make your tinctures. This would be where, your potpourris, your tea, any of your compresses, any of your washes, herbal baths, would all be done with your dried herbs. What you'll do, this is lemon balm, and it's a small bundle. Now when you get done with lemon balm, because it spreads and it grows so big, you will take a big bundle. You will have, or many bundles of lemon balm. And your cotton string and dyed quickly. Literally at the stem, and you do not tie it loosely because as the herb dries, it shrinks and it will fall out. So you're going to want to tie this very tightly. As it starts to continue to dry, you might have to retie again because it will shrink and it will loosen up. Out of the sun, hung inside or in a barn.
How do you keep them from getting all dusty?
Well, that is part of the love of dried old school herbal medicine. You can go ahead and yes.
Take a round paper bag,
Yes.
put a hole in the bottom, put the string
Yes.
through, and then hang.
And that leads me to my very next. If you are saving seeds or catching seeds, if you are drying lavender, that's a very good point.
And the dust problem.
And the dust problem. Remember though, you don't want mold. Now paper bags do breathe. Hole in the bottom is a wonderful thing. Your herb goes inside. It's wonderful for lavender because the flowers will fall off if you're doing anything floral. And as I said, if you harvest a plant that has flowers or seeds, they're going to fall. So you would take that string, tie it around, and hold it up. This is a way of preserving your herbs. We were discussing earlier today about bringing your herbs in and trying to grow them. You might want to label it, that helps. If you have a lot of stuff you're drying, it's easy to lose track. Growing herbs indoors in the winter, if you are able, is a wonderful thing. A lot of times herbs tend to not thrive indoors. Some people I have seen, they do a wonderful job with it, and good for them, that's awesome. I've never been able to be successful with that. I find that herbs tend to really need the outdoor elements, the changes, to have a good medicinal property to them. Sure. Yes. A jam bag, anything that has air holes. Yep. Even cheesecloth, if you really wanted to do that, would work fine. When I'm drying chamomile, I use baskets. And this is not completely dry. This is my chamomile that I've just begun to harvest. This really is not harvest time. So we're just starting to pick things. So these are still spongy, but this is a German chamomile that I grow every season, and then I lay it out in a basket, and then I take the basket and hang it up. Now my basket has a mesh cover over the top, and I just keep filling and filling and filling until everything is dry and crispy. If you like, I will pass it out. You can smell it, touch it, go right ahead, get involved. It has a lovely scent. I was going to use some older stuff that I had, but the scent just really wasn't as good. So I was like, okay, we're going to use the semi-dried. That makes a great tea. It makes a great compress. It's got 101 uses. It also makes a really good tincture, which will be the next thing that we discuss. The tinctures are a stronger version of herbal medicine. They tend to pull more of the medicinal property into the alcohol. For those of you that cannot or will not use alcohol, you can look up recipes for glycerin-based tinctures that are alcohol-free. Another way that you can work with not taking the alcohol in an alcohol tincture is you can take the drops in water and kind of steam it a little and let the vapors rise. The alcohol will evaporate and you will be left with the medicine itself. I'm going to pass this around. This is glass, so be careful if it hits the ground. It's going to go. I suggest not to drink. We're not supposed to be drinking here. There are multiple versions of making tinctures. Some people will argue that theirs is better than the other. This is the way I like to do it because it's simple, to the point, and it gets the job done pretty well. I'll put my oil away. I'm going to get the lemon balm back out because lemon balms make a wonderful tincture that are used for many, many ailments like depression, anxiety, colds and flus. This is a mild, very mild, without many cautions to it at all, which is why I say it's a really good one. If you're going to do something like an oregano tincture, oregano is a bit strong. It's very strong, actually. David over here has taken some of my oregano tinctures.
The tincture is what?
It is an alcohol-based.
No, that's the herb.
Oh, the herb that we're working with right now?
You have in the bottle.
Oh, that's chamomile. That is a chamomile, yep.
I thought. But then you were talking lemon balm.
Nope, that's the one that we're going to make.
I didn't smell lemon.
Nope, that is a chamomile. Yes.
Can you use lemon thyme?
You can use lemon thyme in a tincture, yes. You can also use basil. You can use pretty much all of the herbs. I would say the only one that I covered in the last class that I would probably leave out of a tincture would be yarrow. I have an extra chair if you would like. It's too hot? Okay. That's okay.
This is wonderful.
If you would like, you can contact me. Please. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Have a lovely day. The lemon balm tincture, you can even get into syrups, which will be a whole other class. But when you're working, syrups are great. I love it. That's how I get my daughter to take her herbs. And we do a lot of syrups. Exactly. Add a little sugar. It goes a little better. Yes, and it is wonderful for the throat. Okay. My The tincture.
Is a tincture just a higher concentration of these herbs as opposed to like an infusion?
Yes, yes, the alcohol actually has a very strong drawing power. So you're going to be dealing with something a little more concentrated and a little more intense. And that brings me back to when I was dealing with the oregano. Oregano is extremely strong. It can cause irritations if you're going to be taking them. I suggest for people who are very ill with bronchitis and things like that to use. It does help as a digestive tonic, but I never say to use anything more than 5 days without taking a break. Never. Any herb that you're doing, you should never take consistently. It will and can build up in the system and cause side effects. It's pretty standard. So, yes?
What kind of alcohol are you talking about?
We'll get to that. That will be anything 80 proof or over for a tincture. Because number one, it has cleansing properties to keep fungus and bacteria out. And also, it has a stronger pull to pull the medicine out as well. So, is there any other questions on that? This is pretty standard. You're going to leave it for about 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to cut this herb into bits. We will pack into the jar, a clean jar, of course. And this is an 80 proof. Now, when you're buying, I have chosen a vodka. When you are buying an alcohol, you want to make sure that it is as natural distilled as possible. If you're using a wine to infuse, you can do this also with red wine. You are going to want to make sure that it's nitrate free because you're not going to want to deal with, you're adding a natural medicine with a chemical. So it kind of defeats the purpose. If you have a homemade wine, that's perfect. Go with that. You will take the alcohol and you will pour the vodka over the herb again. You're going to use your stick to get air bubbles out. Once again, air bubbles do cause decay. You're going to continue to work on this one. You're going to open it regularly, look in it, smell it, check the way that it looks. The color will change. Your alcohol color will change. As you can see, that was the vodka I used on the chamomile tincture, and you can see what the color is. So it will alter. Your plant will alter the look of it. You want to make sure that the smell does not smell rotted when you are working with it. Tinctures are a great way. You can take straight drops under the tongue, or you can mix it, as I said, to get rid of the alcohol, or you can put a couple drops in a big glass of water. You're still getting the medicine. It's just in a much more diluted form. This is a great way of preserving. Tinctures can last up to 2 years. It's a great, as long as it's stored out of the sunlight, in a cupboard somewhere, it's a great place for a tincture. So me preparing this out here is really not good for the medicine, just so you all know. Nope, I'm not going to be using this herb. All of these will actually go into the compost pile at the end of this class. You will cover, date, label, and then shake. And that's one of the keys with tinctures. You're going to shake them. And they say to shake it for about a minute. That's up to you. And then the next day, I would suggest to shake again. And shake for at least, regularly. Shake it. You might want to add a little more alcohol as well over some time to make sure the herb is covered. Again, you want to keep the plant matter below the line of the alcohol. Okay? When you're done, same process. You can use, we'll use this one here. Pretend this is my cup. Pour, strain, and press. Because you're going to want to squeeze out every last drop of the medicine that you have. You're going to want it into your jar. This is time consuming. You put your heart and soul into this, you brew it, and you're making medicine with it. Use it all, Alcohol-based things are wonderful in compost piles. They help with the enzymes, they help to, your worms get loaded, they have a party, they eat lots of stuff, and your compost does better. It really does work.
How long should you keep it before you strain it?
I'm sorry?
How long do you keep it in the jar before you strain it?
About 3 weeks.
About 3
Yep.
weeks.
Yep. Now, I, once again, have left tinctures for up to a month or two. depending. I tend to go a little longer than the standard. The other version of this is some people agree to mix half water and half alcohol, equal amounts, with the herb. Other people I have also seen will cook the herb and the water together to make a heavy tea, then add the alcohol. It's entirely up to you the way that you choose to do it. I find this to be simple and works. So that's what I like to stick with. That is our tincture. Are there any questions about tincture?
So if you cooked it, the water and the alcohol, then that would just replace the alcohol.
It can, yes. You can basically, you know, if you cook with wine, basically when you're done with the flavor of the wine, you know alcohol. And that's pretty much what you're looking to do with the herb. You don't want to boil, you want to simmer so that it has the vapors. You want to see those vapors. That's the alcohol leaving. So then you're more safe. And then again, to go even further, I would dilute it in a large glass of water with 4 or 5 drops. You're still getting your medicine, less alcohol. Okay? And you can also look for tincture based. It's a recipe you can look up with glycerin and vegetable glycerin instead. So, and those are very helpful. So we have now covered. I'm sorry?
What about mixing herbs? Yeah.
Mixing herbs? Yes, you can. You could do something like, we've got lovely lemon balm. Lemon balm and verbena would be lovely. It's super lemony. You would get all the medicinal properties of both plants, and you could put the two of them together. Or you go, there you go. That's a great one. Yes, absolutely. Catnip is also awesome for stomach discomfort. It's fantastic. Upset stomach, vomiting, diarrhea. Excellent for all of that. Colic in babies. That was the first herbal remedy I was ever given when I was a baby, was catnip, because I was colicky. I had a milk allergy that nobody knew about back in the 70s, and therefore my grandmother, who is still alive, said, give her catnip. And my mother thought she was crazy, but she went and did it anyway, and it worked. So it's a wonderful, that's an awesome herb, and they do grow out here as well. Grow as much of that as you can. Our next one, I'm not promoting any specific products here. Apple cider vinegar. What you want to do is you want to see the mother at the bottom. You want the gunk. This is the minerals. That's what you want. This is all the healthy stuff. Now, there's a really unique electrolyte mix that you can make with this for drinking, and it's fabulous. And I will never pronounce the name right, but it's Swetzel, something like that, where you basically do a teaspoon of vinegar, a tablespoon of honey, and then fill the rest with water, shake well, drink like a tea. You can also add different teas to it as well in place of the water flavor, like lemon balm, or if you're looking for more medicinal basil. If you're looking thyme, you can do things like that, and it replaces the electrolytes and minerals in the body. It rehydrates. It's a fabulous tonic.
How much water?
You would, like, if you had a glass this size, you would add a teaspoon of the vinegar, a tablespoon of the honey. I like a tablespoon because I want it sweet. You can make it as sweet as you want, and the rest would be water, and then give it a good shake. That's a really good tea. But what we're going to do is just make a nice standard. You've seen this, like I said, in Italian deli, sitting on the counter. You've seen the infused rosemary in the oil, and then you have the rosemary in the vinegar, and, you know, it's a really great thing to have. I'm missing one of my paper bags. I guess we will use, this is a mint. I pulled this one flop very quickly. I pulled this one out of the garden this morning. This is just a standard mint. And I'm going to add a little bit of mint and a dash of lemon balm to a vinegar. I would let the vinegar infusion, again, sit for about 3 weeks to a month. Start using it in your salad dressings, use it in your drinks, whatever you use your vinegar for, even hair rinses. Rosemary is a wonderful hair rinse, and vinegar is a wonderful conditioner. So it's an awesome, awesome mix to put together and use in your shower. So, and it doesn't matter if you have hair color or not, vinegar works great. What you're going to do, you're going to take these two I use apple cider vinegar, yeah. I find rather than the processed, as less processed as possible. That's kind of what I go for. You can't always find perfection. It's the world we live in. But as unprocessed as possible would be key. We're going to bruise. Rip it up. Beat it up. You want the juices to be out. And then you're going to take your apple cider vinegar again. Cover the plant matter. I'm sorry? Yeah, you don't need the honey if you're doing it for your hair. That'll be sticky.
I thought maybe honey was good.
Well, I suppose, honey it's a toner. It's a natural toner. It has the proper enzymes. Honey's excellent as a toner for the skin, actually, for the face. Yeah, exactly. Luckily, it's water soluble, so if you really want to go that far. I've actually used honey in some of my skin salves, very, very small amounts, however. So again, the same process. You're going to get the air bubbles out. You're going to push it below the line. You're going to cap it, and there you go. Label it. Leave it for a couple of weeks. Strain out your plant matter at the end. Put it in a fresh, clean jar, and you've got a nice scented vinegar. You have a medicinal tincture, and you also have a beautiful medicinal oil. Are you guys ready for the next step? Or shall I taste them? Do you get to taste them? I said, no drinking here. I can't do the drinking part.
When would you
Maybe if it were noon.
When would you use a tincture? I can't say that word.
The tincture.
When did you use that versus the oil versus
Tinctures you can use for different things. Like this, the leaf I have here, I'll just use this as an example. This is plantain. This is, you pull it out of everybody's yard. Now, this is a big one, yes. I have a big plant that I've let live in my garden for years because it's awesome, and I infuse it. I infuse this in oil to put in salves, but I also, for tinctures, a lot of times tinctures are internal. However, plantain would be one that you would use external. You can even use the chamomile externally. Bug bites, rashes, burns, different things like that. You can, take a drop or two on the skin or on the bug bite or the bee sting, and it will help to soothe. You can do a tincture with lavender, and it would be a wonderful thing for burns. But once again, you do have the alcohol base, so dilute it. If you're going to take internally when you're very ill, you're going to take a couple of drops a couple times a day. I think what I had for you, you were doing 2-3 drops twice a day, and then the following week we backed it off to 1 drop for every day for a week, weekends taking a break. So they can be internal or external. You can wash wounds with them. They're wonderful for cleaning wounds. You can also use them for, as muscle rubs, and things like that. I prefer the oil myself, the infused oils or poultices for sore muscles and aching joints, because you can massage it in. With the alcohol, it's drying to the skin. So, use your common sense for that one and what you choose. If you do have a wound, though, I would suggest the tincture would be a great wash to use for a wound, scrapes and cuts. I'm going to talk about, let me use half of this. I will talk about a poultice. A lot of people will take poultice, plant matter, and put it into a food processor. You can use a mortar and pestle. You can also do this. I know you can chew it. Chewing is the old-fashioned way. The saliva actually breaks down the leaf. And then you would take this poultice and put it onto the area that is affected, say from a bug bite, and wrap it and let sit. This is great for wounds as well. It's very, very healing. So this would be a poultice. It would be pounded, pulverized plant matter placed directly on the area. If you have a fracture, it's a wonderful thing for rosemary to use when there are fractures that cannot be casted, like a broken bone or rib. It's a wonderful thing to make a poultice on that affected area. And it does help actually heal sprains and different things. We'll cover properties last. I know I covered most of them in the last class, but I'm going to go over the properties of each of these herbs today. So now we've covered poultices, then we're going to cover compress and washes. We're going to do both. Now we're going to pretend that I have a hot cup of steaming tea here, but I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of water as it is boiling and bubbling and all of that. This would be my lavender flowers, as I'm using just as an example. So you'd be